Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Graying Jedi podcast. I am Urza Master. Joining me as always, Lord Uther and Jedi Master Cilia Maz. Gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to that galaxy far, far away, but this time, a brand new series, a brand new story. We join the effervescent children's adventure known as Skeleton Crew, marketed once as the Goonies in space. Jedi Master Cilia Maz, take us away as we dive into the start of this brand new Star Wars endeavor.
Hello, Graying Jedi fans. Hello, fellow Jedi Masters. Yes, we are kicking off a brand new deep dive into the latest Star Wars Disney Plus streaming extravaganza, Skeleton Crew, which premiered on the network on December 2nd, 2024. If you haven't yet caught the premiere episodes, be sure to tune in, and then tune in to pending rebrand's coverage of all things The Crew. This was a show that was co-created by John Watts and Christopher Ford. They have worked together, as we will discuss very shortly, on a number of projects you're familiar with. They are the co-showrunners and principal writers of the 8 episodes in Season 1. Christopher Ford and John Watts will write 6 of them. In fact, the first episode, the pilot, which was This Could Be a Real Adventure, was directed by John Watts and was written by Christopher Ford and John Watts. In addition to them being showrunners, we have executive producers Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. We have Kathleen Kennedy, and we have someone we probably should have mentioned by now in the Graying Jedi, because he's had a great career, and was the executive producer of both The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett, and that is Colin Wilson. And Mr. Wilson has definitely worked on projects you're familiar with. He got his start as an editor, as an assistant editor, and he edited the first 3 Superman movies with Christopher Reeve, or rather assisted on those editings. He edited Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as an assistant and associate editor. He also did Steven Spielberg's Empire of the Sun and Always as an assistant editor. Then he became a producer, and he started producing films that I know you've seen or even own in your collection. Casper, Jurassic Park, The Flintstones, The Lost World Jurassic Park, Amistad, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, Troy, Spielberg's remake of War of the Worlds, Munich, John Carter, and The Meg. It's okay if you skip the last one, but nevertheless, the man has been prolific, and then he found time to get involved with Lucasfilm's streaming shows. So he and Kathleen Kennedy, Filoni and Favreau, Watts and Ford, they are bringing us this. John Watts, the director, got his start with a picture called Cop Car, which is a very entertaining riff on The Hitcher, which starred Rutger Hauer in the 80s. And this one, it's Kevin Bacon. And it's 2 kids who come across a police car and take it for a joyride, not knowing that they're going to get in a lot of trouble when the corrupt cop whose car that is catches up to them. He also did 3 Spider-Man films for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all the Tom Hollands, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man No Way Home. And his most recent was for the Apple Plus streaming caper movie Wolves, starring Brad Pitt and George Clooney. Christopher Ford has worked with Watts for a while. They worked together on Cop Car and Homecoming. And as I said, they will write 6 out of the 8 episodes for Skeleton Crew. Watts directed the pilot and the final episode still to come for the show. He pitched it to Kathleen Kennedy, coming back home from Europe while filming Spider-Man. And as Ursa Master suggested, it was Star Wars meets Stranger Things meets Goonies meets Amblin. And for those of you who are too young to remember the Spielberg Amblin films of the 1980s, it was a subgenre in and of itself of children who would usually find fantastic adventures just outside in their backyards. We're talking E.T., The Goonies, Harry and the Hendersons, Batteries Not Included, Inner Space, Gremlins, Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3, Poltergeist, and Young Sherlock Holmes, just to name a few. That was the pitch. It is bringing Star Wars back to one of George Lucas's core tenet audiences, which was children of various ages, from 8 to 80. And we had not seen that, especially with some of the gritty realism of Andor and some of these other shows. This was an attempt to try and bring it back to a childlike sense of wonder, mystery, awe, and innocence. David Lowery is the director of episodes 2 and 3. David Lowery is an independent film director. He's done Ain't Them Bodies Saints, The Old Man and the Gun with Robert Redford, but he also did the live-action Disney remake of Pete's Dragon, which inexplicably had Robert Redford in it, of all people. And I think that's how he got the gig, because he did do a big-budget Disney remake of Pete's Dragon. And he also directed Jude Law as Captain Hook in one of the more recent adaptations of the Peter Pan saga, Peter Pan and Wendy, which you can also find streaming on Disney+. This series takes place in the same era as the Mandoverse. So while events of The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka are transpiring, this is taking place in that timeline, and it would not be too much to speculate that some characters or events could cross over, particularly in Dave Filoni's upcoming Mandoverse feature. Stay tuned. We're cast as led by Jude Law. Depending on what we call him, depends on which episodes you've seen. Let's just say he's a mysterious figure with multiple identities and plenty of baggage. Ravi Cabot-Conyers plays Wim. Ryan Kira Armstrong plays Fern. Kiriana Crater plays KB. Robert Timothy Smith plays the blue floppy-eared elephant boy, Neil. And Nick Frost plays SM-33, the pirate droid. You'll remember Nick Frost with his team-ups with Simon Pegg. You've seen him in Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End. He voiced an Adventures of Tintin for Spielberg, and he'll appear in the live-action How to Train Your Dragon next summer. Tunde Adebempe plays Wim's father, Wendell. He's an independent film star. He was recently in Twisters over the summer, and he also appeared in Anne Hathaway's Rachel Getting Married from a few years ago. Carrie Condon plays Fern's mother, the undersecretary, who is passionate about kids taking their tests. You recognize her. She's been in Angela's Ashes. She was actually the voice of Friday in all of the Avengers films, Age of Ultron, Civil War, Infinity War. So she is the female counterpart to Jarvis that we see in the MCU. She was also in Inexplicably Night Swim, little horror movie from last January, and she'll be appearing as Brad Pitt's engineer in F1 on Formula One racing next summer. The special effects were done by John Knoll. He is the ILM special effects supervisor. He's been with ILM for 25 years. I don't know why he has a day job, gentlemen, because he co-invented Adobe Photoshop. And you would have thought that that would have been enough to just kick back on a beach and just count the zeros. But apparently he wanted a day job, so he's a special effects guru. He worked on The Phantom Menace and the prequel trilogy, and he's worked on Pirates of the Caribbean and tons of things. But had you invented a best-selling web app like Photoshop, I'm pretty sure you would have cleared your calendar 4 times over. And we have a little bit of Next Generation here with the composer Mick Giacono. His dad, of course, is Michael. Michael has done a lot of Marvel scoring. He also did Rogue One, a Star Wars story in that. And he also did the Spider-Man themes for John Watts' MCU. But this is actually Mick, his son, picking up the baton and doing the composing, which, if you listen to the music, It sounds very nautical. It sounds very pirate-like, and it's completely appropriate with the story they're trying to tell. And gentlemen, I'm going to turn it over to you for reactions, but I just want to say my 10,000-foot note is how refreshing is it for a show that does not, at this juncture, require an extensive knowledge of Star Wars lore, does not rely on traditional Star Wars heroes or villains to this point. We're not seeing stormtroopers and Imperial remnants and acolytes of Thrawn and the ilk. Instead, this appears to be very pirate-centric, which is interesting given that pirates played a bit in The Mandalorian Season 3. They've been talked about in the New Republic following the fall of the Empire. But if that is pretty much the bads, right? You've got swashbuckling interstellar buccaneers versus these plucky kids and the former pirate captain on the outs with them. I'm all for it. It's, as we've talked about, a slice of Star Wars and a sliver of Star Wars that isn't going to just rest on its laurels and coast on Force users and the like. It feels different. It feels fun. And they're going to have to execute well in order to get us, run through the tape and get the finish line. The show is intended to run for multiple seasons if it does well, and if Lucasfilm, gets the green light from the mothership to continue. There are plans to extend this story. I know The Acolyte was cut short after one season based on a variety of things, big budgets, fan engagement that ranged from hostile to indifferent to passionate. So, this was a very well-reviewed show out of the gate. Again, subsequent episodes, that's the high wire act you must balance, is you've got to keep people coming back week after week to watch, to enjoy, to chat about, like right here in Pending Rebrand. But all signs early, this was a strong, no fault, out of the starting blocks, seems to be well received in the community, and certainly from this Star Wars fan. I feel like we might be getting a new dessert here, something tasty. How did you guys read Goonies in Space?
What have I been saying all along with these new Star Wars shows, and Trek shows? I mean, let's be honest. Getting away from your core canon and telling the other stories. That's what I've been craving, and we're getting it on most of these shows. We get a little Luke Skywalker, we get a little Force users, we get some Jedi. That's all well and good. But there's so much else in this galaxy far, far away. And space pirates, how could that go wrong? Like, it's such a fun... And this is the right vein to tell that kind of story, because pirates are sort of hokey and kiddie anyway, right? You could tell a gritty pirate story. We've seen them before. Or a seafaring story, spacefaring story with gravitas. But you could do that with Russell Crowe, but you don't need to. You don't need that here. You have this awesome vessel that brings Star Wars to a whole new generation, which is always what they're looking to do. Obviously, something's motivating. But you get a lot of like kid stuff that we can all identify with. Taking tests, being late to school, having to catch a bus in Star Wars, which, getting those brutal teachers that really don't care about you to the point that they're robots.
They're
robots. But then you also get like the very human element of, what it's like to be a latchkey kid. And that, to me, was really cool to see. And I'm thinking potentially even single parent here as well. For not one, but it seems like two of the leads, possibly. And what about bath time? I'm sorry, but like having little siblings watching a kid's show and then like you're having a bubble bath by yourself, like I've got small kids. So like when I saw that, I'm like, oh man, like this is really cute. Like I was really ready to hate this show. I hate child actors. I hate stuff geared strictly towards children. And I really hate it when they bastardize something I love to market it to make money off of kids. And so far, I've not felt any of that. I am like right in this. I love the whole going off road with the motorbike. I love the whole like rebel girl. I mean, come on, rebel girl, nice kid, and then you've got like the kid who desperately wants to be a rebel, but really is just kind of a dumbass. Like the one frustration I had in the whole first episode was the kids being kind of stupid, and I'm like, but they're kids, and like I get it. I'm like, I'm bought in. You've got me, Star Wars. You've got me again. And then you get the second episode where the kids are trying to wear their grown-up pants in the grown-ups area, and I'm just like, I'm so sold. I'm like, this is great. They're in a totally dangerous place being kids. Like, this is the Goonies chase scene that I loved as a kid, with the Fratellis like right behind them, and the only difference is they do get caught here. And I think you have to have a Jude Law character, because one thing that I have against kid movies is the kids, since the Goonies really, always seem to skirt by without the help of an adult. And that's just not realistic, and those movies never sell it with me. I'm like, come on, they're not getting out of this without some, what's the mythos position in the archetype? It's the mystical old man, right? In the hero's journey, there's always the mystical old man that helps the lead or the hero figure themselves out and become bigger than themselves. That's Jude Law. Most of these kids' movies, they wanted to get away from that, and that's where it's not successful. It's not believable anymore. Even in the Goonies, you had Sloth, and you had Josh Brolin. So, like, I really liked it. I really wanted to hate this show so much. And I love the confused parents. I like that we're getting the freaked out parents at home view of things, too. I know it's brief, but that's the part, I think, because every kid show has to be a little bit aimed at adults. That's the part I think that really hooked me into this and grounded it for me, was like, this is going to give you the picture of the sort of societal view of this planet they're from, and why it is the way it is, and why it's obscured the way it's obscured from the rest of the galaxy. That, to me, like, there's enough high-level, adult-level mystery there that as a Star Wars fan, as a sci-fi fan, I'm latching on to. I'm loving the adventure these kids are going through. It's plucky. There's cutesy characters. There's genuine good folks out there trying to help, and the kids are actively ignoring, like, the, shall we say, escort that they run into, who's trying to save their skin, and they're skeptical because they're trying to be grown-ups, and that ends up backfiring. I hope they bring that character back, by the way. I hope somehow she worms back into the story. But there's so much goodness. Like, it's just wholesome. It's a wholesome adventure. It's not pushing any envelopes. It's not overly scary. Like, my two toddler boys were watching it with me. Now they're 2 and 3. They were 2 and 2 for the first episode. Happy birthday, Rowan. But they loved it. They love the visuals. They love the colors. They love the big, huge sort of movie theatrical scale of it. They also love the hijinks and the sort of cutesiness of it. And I don't know, maybe it's just a different perspective I have from stuff that's come up in the last 20 years because of where I'm at in life. But man, this one's hitting. And I can see why it's so well reviewed, because it's not SpongeBob. It's not some crappy, super kidified version of something. It's actually pretty fun.
I haven't had this much fun with a pirate movie since Ice Pirates, quite frankly.
Oh,
And I love that movie. I'm sorry. I know it's panned, but I love it. I'm going to go... Look, there's a couple things. Let's talk about the child actor part. You got to have the right children, but you got to have great writing. And these are themes that all of our faithful pending rebrand fans that are going to help us get to 2,000 subs pretty soon. We're getting that. And then you get, so at least we have that part established, especially if this show is going to be about these kids, which, by the way, I got a long range vision here, so, and I think you know where I'm going to go with this, but stay with me. Next part, and this has been Urza Master's point for the longest time, and I love this point, and because it's in my brain, which again is why everyone should be watching The Graying Jedi, because of the amazing points that are made here. Now that this thought is in my brain, I look for it all the time, and it just does not fail me, and that is these droids are center to almost every story, and they're all different every time. Like, I'm almost waiting when I see a Star Wars show for some kind of, sameness to come up amongst these. Even BB-8, who's looked upon as the R2, but even he's different from R2, right? But here we go again. We've got this droid that is just absolutely amazing. I had a little bit of a Millennium Falcon hunk of junk vibe from the ship, which, obviously somehow traversed the galaxy however far it went with this, droid, piloting it. I also I'm going to compare it to the Warp Core podcast where we talk about Kirk always outsmarting the computer. The kid outsmarts, and I'm sitting there going, just say that you're the captain. Like, just say, and I'm even doing that until the kid finally does it, right? So I love that part of it too. I knew you wanted to hate this. Like, there's no doubt. And I was on the fence, and I even messaged you guys. I'm like, I don't know, this just not look good. So maybe it was the marketing of it, the commercial, I don't know. But I'm sold as of now. And I haven't seen the third episode yet. I think both of you have. I have not. I'm sold on this. And here's my long-range vision, which you know what it is. I want to see them in the Thrawn movie, which we had even talked about that before. Somehow, I want this ragtag group to come together with some incredible writing and make this all work. And I hope at some point some of these people die and they stay dead, because that will make it all the better. We're invested in The Mandalorian. We're going to be invested in these kids. We're invested in Ahsoka. Like, we're it's like a part of us now in a sense. And I think if you see some of them die in the Thrawn movies, I think it would be like Game of Thrones-ish in a sense, when they were letting go of some of those characters that you weren't expecting it during Game of Thrones. So, love it. Can't wait to see more of it. Just want it to stay on that great path. And again, special effects, one more thing. Can we just appreciate the era that we're living in, where we're getting movie effects every single day on our TV screen? It's
wonderful. Wonderful.
Because, again, you're ingrained in it, and a part of it all the more. And it's just, it's beautiful.
Knowing that they shot the pirate sequences in the spaceport, in Santa Monica in a soundstage, later augmented by ILM and all of that, the scale and scope, you can rewatch that episode. I've already rewatched it twice, and there are just all these little details that even on a small screen, jump out at you. Those little, like, trapped hummingbird type creatures that KB locks onto that get freed, like, that's not part of the essential narrative, but by the time that they fly away and float away, you're like, oh, good, they're getting away. Like, it's like a little pet, if you will. You've developed a bond towards it. I think there are big questions to the show. I'm not saying it has to be a success to answer these questions, but they've got my curiosity piqued. I'd like to know these things. Obviously, we all want to know about Ad-Atten. Why is it that the suburban tract neighborhoods that look something straight out of E.T. or Poltergeist are suddenly the most coveted in all the galaxy by the scourge and scum and villainy that we see in the pirates? Like, why is it that having Old Republic credits, which is lunch money on this planet, is suddenly like, let's slit their throats and take their wallets kind of thing? I want to know more about KB, the quiet child, because she has these cyber implants. I want to know if that's like a medical condition for her or why she's, got these enhancements at such a young age. I'd like to know her backstory. Up until the first, in episode 3, they'll answer a little bit of this, but she was the only one in the first 2 episodes. We didn't see any of her home life. We saw everybody else's, home life to some degree, except KB's. So I'd like to know a little bit more about her. I like the tension between Fern and her mother and the rebellious Fern. So I'd like to, and how she wants to take charge. And Wim, I mean, yes, he might be considered, the annoying type, but think of Elliot in E.T. I mean, this is a kid who plays with action figures, who daydreams during class about Jedi and having an adventure, who yearns for something more than this boring suburban life. And I think the young actor Ravi Kabit-Conyers, I think that if that's what he's going for there, it's probably far less reviled than some people found Jake Lloyd in The Phantom Menace or so forth. Like, yes, I think he's on the right side of cute annoying at this point because, we're that kid. Like, everyone else looks around and says, oh, look at these pirate quarters. They're full of skeletons and dust, and it's gross. And he's like, we can sleep here. Look at that, with the hyperspace in the windows there.
He's definitely, I love how you put that, the good side of annoying. And we'll get into this when we go over episode 3, but he was the one weak point of the first 2 episodes, but he's grown on me through those first 2. And I at first, all I saw was Jake Lloyd and the Stranger Things kids, and I hate all of them. I cannot stand them. I hate Stranger Things. That show sucks. And I was like, if this kid ruins this show for me, it's just... But he hasn't. And kudos to this kid, too, by the way, who is playing, I would say, probably one of the easier, kid parts to screw up. But he's given it a level of complexity. Because he wants this adventure, but the first thing he wants is to go home. He doesn't say that, but it plays out on his face. It plays out in the way he's approaching every situation. Like, he has that genuine curiosity, but there is a timidness to him and an innocence to him that reminds me a lot of Mikey from the Goonies. And, I don't know if Sean Astin has watched this show, but if he's thinking that kid stole my shtick, he's right. That I could not have put it better. He's on the good side of annoying.
And I'm going to take both of your points and put them together just real quick.
Go.
I love the mythos. Like, we're getting some Jedi mythos here in a sense of this kid reading a book about Jedi. And for some reason, I love that because it's bringing them in without bringing them in. But it also makes me think about, I can't believe I'm going to say this, in the sequel trilogy, where he's like, no, this is all true. Like, when he's talking to Rey and stuff, like, all these things are true. And here's this kid dreaming of being a Jedi. Like, I kind of like that a little bit, that he's kind of dreaming and wanting to do that. So to me, it sold it that much more. And one more thing I want to throw out there. How about, I'm feeling like this is an Ahsoka point. The jump that the droid makes with the ship seems to go farther than anything else, right? Which kind of made me think of them making that huge leap into the other galaxy in Ahsoka. Like, is this justifying that, or is this showing us another piece, or maybe how it happens, and how come this droid can do it? Or did they jump so I think there's all these questions that are out there, but I feel like it's backing up Ahsoka a little bit, which, last point, it's taking all these things and bringing them all together. That's excellent writing, without shoving it in your face.
My favorite moment in the 2-part premiere was SM-33. They're sitting there saying, just turn us around and go back. Go back where? Ad Aden. I don't remember. I don't know any Ad Aden. Check your memory banks. Check the locate. Like, they go through this whole thing, and then he just looks at them, and they're like, what are all those? And they're like, those are stars. And he goes, and the droid says, which one is Ad-Atten? And then they cut to like the exterior of the ship, and they're just surrounded by billions of bejeweled white light. And there was just a poignancy, like the droid just saying, so which one is it? And it's great. The kids don't know. I mean, what happens when a 10-year-old kid gets lost or an 8-year-old kid gets lost and they're like approach a policeman or something and say, I need to go home. Okay, well, what's your mom's name? Mom? Like, you know, where do you live? Like, it's, parents fear that, right? That their kid might not be old enough to, you know, maybe 8 years old, you should know it, but maybe you're 6 or 4 and you have no idea how to tell somebody how to get home, but you know you have to get home. So, and that's, I think that should be something worth exploring.
I hadn't even thought of that. Uther, did you have that little like moment of rising terror like I just did where you're like, oh man, I hadn't that I don't know why, but I must have missed that point entirely. I remember being there thinking, well, turn the fucking ship around. Like you got to have some location data. But then you think about it, and like it's a broken droid, first of all, and then yeah, that moment of I need to get to my house. Where's your house? You know,
It's by the school. You know, what school, what streets, you know, and it's like, yeah.
But even they pull that off so well with the writing of, which, again, silly Moss. I didn't even think about that. They're asking how to get home. I don't. But as a kid, when for some reason that's how good the writing was, it never dawned on me that it's just a lost kid. So I think that's how great the writing was. Sorry, I'm getting a little stuffed up here.
No, it's fantastic, and now as a parent, I'm like, oh man, that is a terror that, again, when you make a kid's show, you have to make it enjoyable for the parents too, or nobody's going to watch it. This is why we don't allow certain shows in my house, because it's like, no, that show sucks. You're not going to watch it. This is one that you really can share because there are plenty of parent moments out there. So if you're a skeptical Star Wars fan, we're about to do our Kyber Crystal ratings, and you may be thinking, is it really worth that? Trust me, there's enough in this for an adult Star Wars fan who is not just a child living in a house, but actually an adult person with a job and graying hairs. You will enjoy this. Trust me. With or without littles, you can get something from this. So, gentlemen, Kyber Crystal ratings. I think I will kick it off because I'm going to go ahead and just say it. I was probably the most skeptical one entering this 1-2 punch of an episode release for Skeleton Crew. And I will give it a resounding Coca-Cola green see-through glass Kyber Crystal. You could not have taken a person who wanted to hate this show more and flipped the script entirely on them. I was truthfully blown away by how well executed this was, and I can't wait for the next episode to drop.
Well, to me, this episode was no joke. So I'm going to go Joker hair green and say that I'm excited, especially after those viewings of The Acolyte. But I'm going to say this: I'm going to go back and rewatch it because I've been wrong before, but I still think I'm going to be right.
That's Jared Leto, Joker green hair, by the way. For me, I'm going to continue with the Ursa Master beverage, and we will go with Grogu green. Although this was before we learned Grogu's name, so he is just the child on this merchandising. So maybe that'll make a buck or two on Etsy down the road. Gentlemen, I love Star Wars. You know this. I won't apologize for it. Star Wars is like pizza. Even if you think it's not so good, it really is good. Trust us. And it's good not because other people said so, but because it gave me the feels. And that's what the kids are saying these days. And this one, like everything else, it gave me those feels. I want it to be successful. I want it to run through the tape. Don't just coast, but give us fresh, fun storytelling each week. through the new year, and I'm right there with you. And then, that will set the table for grittier, darker Tony Gilroy season 2 of Andor later in the spring. So a completely different show and completely excellent on its own terms. But this one is a nice new slice of dessert for Star Wars fans young and old.
And to continue that pizza metaphor, if you're looking into Star Wars and you're looking for Lou Malnati's, you will maybe not find it with this, but you will find Giordano's. And that's good enough.
Yes.
So until we get back to this galaxy far, far away to join this motley crew of children on a pirate-like adventure where out there it's their time, down here it's our time. It's our time. Down here at Pending Rebrand, may the Force be with you.
Arg.
Always.